Gibraltar is blessed with a rich variety of natural and human history. The rock and the town below have been home to many cultures and people over the centuries. The artifacts, monuments and memories that remain become our heritage, a common inheritance which we all share. And as Gibraltar moves forward and grows, it is up to us as a society to make sure this heritage endures and becomes a part of our future as well. Leading this effort is the Gibraltar Heritage Trust, an independent statutory body entrusted with the preservation of our heritage, whose aim it is to ensure that modern Gibraltar retains history and heritage at its heart. The development of Gibraltar's dockyard can be traced back all the way to the 15th century. During the Spanish occupation, a fortified tower and a mole would be established towards the southern part of the rock, the area today known as South Mole, affording ships an area for anchorage and protection. During the 1704 capture of Gibraltar, the tower was destroyed, but the mole remained, and the area would form the basis of what would eventually become the Royal Naval Dockyard. In the 18th and 19th century, with Britain's empire depending on the strength of her Royal Navy, Gibraltar's strategic position at the mouth of the Mediterranean was an essential port for refueling and supplies on the way to other British outposts. Additionally, the symbol of the rock projected Britain's power worldwide. The early British port was developed with the South Mole area being constructed in the 1720s, and later coaling facilities were added. In 1895, a proposal by Captain Augustus Phillimore would be acted upon to greatly develop and extend the dockyard. The moles were extended, several workshops were built, and the torpedo-proof dockyards excavated. The Royal Naval Dockyard is an area which vividly demonstrates Victorian technological prowess and ingenuity, and is a testament to the importance of Gibraltar in the age of British Empire. Although the military function of the dockyard is greatly reduced, the facilities built at that time continue to be used in a variety of ways. In 2017, a number of these buildings were destined to become the new operational headquarters for the Bassadone Automotive Group in Gibraltar, with a plan to repurpose and reinvigorate the existing buildings whilst respecting and preserving their heritage.
Yes, I'm Martin Figueres. I'm the Estates Director and Projects Director for the Bassadone Group. And what we're trying to do here is relocate all the Bassadone Automotive Group facilities in Gibraltar onto this building. The Bassadone Group has been growing over the last 20 years, particularly in terms of the Toyota business. And as our facilities spread out over Devil's Tower Road and other parts of Gibraltar, a number of years ago we decided that we needed to consolidate into one location. At the moment we operate 4 separate workshops spread across Gibraltar, 3 separate warehouses again spread out across different sites. This building enables us to have all our workshops and all our stores one next to each other. And that immediately will give us, we estimate, about a 20% increase in efficiency just by all being together under one roof. Eventually we agreed and found this building available after the MOD handed over to the government, and we acquired it from the government, and we engaged our architects and designers, and in a very early stage identified that the building was suitable, and then we've embarked on the restoration and conversion project that you see today. The business that's going to be the primary user of the building is Toyota Gibraltar stock holdings, which are, as most people see, are the white cars that we've got parked and you see moving about Gibraltar in the big car carriers through the frontier. So essentially that's the conversion work that we're going to do here. So the cars will come in and they'll be converted into anything from ambulances, off-road, and whatever our client needs. In the main, the client are charities and the United Nations, and so we think it's a great business that will work very well in this building. It was very important from the beginning, the moment that the dockyard area was identified as the site that we were able to move into. Clearly the the heritage aspect came to the front of the project. And we've strived throughout the design, throughout the implementation, to balance obviously our company's needs and the modern aspects and modernization of operations with the character and age of the building. So what we've done is work very closely with the Heritage Trust particularly on everything that we've done. We've tried to keep or restore as much of the old equipment that is here. We've also made it the point of allocating some space and create a heritage interpretation center, so things that have had to be moved we have kept and will be displayed again. And also we've ensured that we try and bring as much of the heritage elements into the public area of the facility, given that obviously the workshops aren't going to be publicly accessible on a day-to-day. So some of them, again, working with the Heritage Trust, some of the features and architectural elements that we've discovered, we've removed carefully, stored during the works, and they'll be reinstalled in more public areas so that the public can visit and appreciate the heritage of the site.
Bassadone Automotive Group is relocated from Devil's Tower Road to Dockyard Approach Road. They got in touch with us, I think, about a couple of years ago with their plans for the site and what they needed for their operations to be able to work for the business. It came in tandem through the planning process. We had a number of site meetings, we went on site, we did a historical assessment for them, identifying areas and pieces of industrial equipment that were of heritage value and should be retained in situ or should be salvaged from the building. And as a result of that, they really have taken it to heart, and we think they're doing a really great job. I think a lot more than the design, it really is the people who are carrying out the design need to have the passion and the drive behind it to make it happen. And I think the Bassadone Group's project is a good example of that.
My name is Ian Martinez and I am the project manager for phase 1 of Bassadone Automotive World, specifically looking at the workshops and the warehouse for Toyota Gibraltar Stock Holdings. As a project manager, I am responsible to the project director, which is Martin Figueres, for delivering this project within time. As you will see as we go through the project, there is a monumental amount of work that we've had to do. And more specifically with the Heritage Trust, because as you will see, it is a very beautiful, very old building. It's been very important for us to be able to retain the heritage and the beauty of this building. When we got it from the previous occupier, it was in a very bad state, and for us it's been a work of art to try and bring it back to its former glory. So by close liaison with Claire and the team in the Heritage Trust, we've managed to do some good work, which I invite you to follow me and have a look at what we've done. We're outside here. Basically, you see behind me loads of pallets of wooden blocks. At the beginning we thought they were bricks. We brought the Heritage Trust to come in to have a look at them, and obviously they discovered it. So sequentially they asked us to protect it, to lift it out, which we did. Now some of them, as you can see from here, are in a pretty bad state, so there's no way that we can salvage those. But we managed to get about 10,000 of the wooden blocks, which we're now in the process of refurbishing, and most of them will be going back into the build at some sort. There's a very small patch which will go back in its original location so that we can demonstrate that they were actually fitted there, but the majority will go either in the new build or the phase 3 extension, and they'll be incorporated into the design by the architects. These blocks, according to the Heritage Trust, were basically the bottom layer. Essentially, if any tool was to fall on it, basically they wouldn't cause a spark, and that's essentially why they had, and they think that was the majority of the bottom ground was all covered in these wooden blocks. The Heritage Trust again has informed us this probably would have been inserted on the original building when it was built, the late 1800s. So they form part of it. Now obviously, as the building was being transformed by the MOD over the decades, a lot of these were lifted up and were replaced by concrete. But we managed to find about 12,000 or 15,000 bricks approximately, which we've managed to salvage about 10,000 of them. Okay, so right now we are standing on the eastern side of the building. I am now standing where the old sort of electrical workshops used to be. This building that was here was built in the 1960s, so it had no historical value. So it's been demolished. This is where our new facilities will be built. But obviously, when we demolished the old building, what we found is that there had been quite a lot of damage which had happened over the course of the years by the Ministry of Defence to the building itself. So we've been in the process, and you can see on the facade there's various phases of what we're doing and repairing and bringing the building back to life. The first thing you'll probably notice is that it's been sort of sandblasted, and it stands out from the rest of the buildings or equal buildings which are to the left and right of it. So we sandblasted the whole of the building inside and outside, so we spent quite a bit of money on that investment. And then obviously we're in the process of fixing loads of holes. Now you probably won't be able to see, but on the extreme sort of right hand side we had a beam there that connected the 1960s building to the old building, and that made a lot of damage, and there was a lot of damage on the columns. Those columns have now sort of been fixed, so even though you see them pretty and nice, they're not all made out of stone. They've been sort of recreated. So it is our part of bringing the heritage or the building back to life. Likewise on the second window, if you just look at a sort of semi-duck patch above the second window, wooden window there, you'll see where a doorway used to exist. That doorway is no longer there because it's not part of our future build. And likewise, if you keep panning to your left-hand side, you'll see again various holes which accommodated either exhaust systems or air conditioning systems, and they've been patched up, but they're in the process of being repaired. If you look at the lettering on the actual side, the electrical workshops, that will be repainted once we've finished everything to bring out and highlight what used to be here in those days. The biggest piece of work that we've had to do is on your left-hand side, and that essentially spans from the top of the window. You'll see quite a very big patch that stems from the grey sort of flat, which still has to be finished, all the way up to the archways. Those archways were not there. We had literally a rectangular sort of opening for a lift that used to be there for a crane, and obviously speaking and liaising to the Heritage Trust, they wanted us to bring the windows back, which we did. So we are now in the process of putting the windows back in to that elevation, and the extent of the work is phenomenal. Because if you actually see just below the orange brickwork, that moulding which you see there, again, that is concrete, which is now in the process of being put back in its original colour. So we're very happy with the way it's turning out, and hopefully once it's finished it should bring the building back to life.
Bassadone Motors has been selling cars to the Gibraltarian public for almost 100 years. Formed in 1904 by George Bassadone, originally as a clothing business, the firm has weathered 2 world wars, the Spanish Civil War and a closed frontier, to prosper and evolve into a thriving business within a global market, with Toyota Gibraltar Stock Holdings Limited converting and providing vehicles to the United Nations, international aid agencies, NGOs and government organizations around the globe. With over 100 years of history, the company is looking to its future by redeveloping buildings 70, 80 and 83 of Gibraltar's historical dockyard. Their approach reflects the worldwide movement of repurposing ex-industrial areas for innovative and modern uses, with the aim of stimulating life and activity in historic areas, whilst at the same time bringing their histories and heritage features to the fore, thereby ensuring that their stories are passed on down the generations.
Okay, so we're now situated inside of the eastern side of the building, which is the third warehouse, and obviously the beauty of the building inside with its iron beams is spectacular. But we have a particular feature which we're keeping, even though it doesn't work and we can't bring it back to life, which is the 5-ton gantry train which sits just above me. Now, unfortunately, as I said before, we can't bring it back to life, but we will refurbish it and we're going to retain it. In the future, once we build phase 2, the idea will be that we can connect from the new building through a passageway which will connect into the stores above here. Now, as part of this, there is the gantry, obviously, that goes alongside the building. Unfortunately, we need to remove certain elements of the gantry, but they're just going to be moved inside, so we're not throwing it away, we're keeping it. And again, this has been possible by discussing these issues with the Heritage Trust, bringing out the problems, and they've been very accommodating in the way that we've managed to produce this project. We know very little about the gantry train, but we know that obviously it used to lift quite a lot of heavy materials. We know that in the center window there used to be a rail system coming in to the workshops. So it was for picking materials and dropping off materials onto that train, which would take it at other areas of the dockyard. So we currently are in sort of building 83, which is the easternmost of the warehouses. This will become our warehouse. So this is where all our main bits will come. So on your left-hand side there is the loading and unloading dock. So the pit that you see there is going to be our hydraulic ramp. So all the stores will come in through that door, and they will distributed amongst the warehouse. And then from here, the elements are picked and taken to the workshops next door. Okay, so we are now in sort of building 80, which is the middle of the three warehouses, and where I'm standing now is what will become our future sort of water jet cutting rooms. This is where we cut sort of metal pieces, component parts for our vehicles. The actual warehouse will become a workshop. This is where we change the Whitefield vehicles and make all the adjustments. I'm happy to say that within the room we have a crane, a very old crane, which still works, as you can see from here. And we will be using this crane to move actually the metal sheets, which are very, very heavy, and be able to position them onto the water cutting room. So we are bringing this piece of heritage back to use. Obviously it's still got to be painted and sort of refurbished, but it will be used within the site. So we're outside sort of building 80, which is the center warehouse, and we're now demonstrating a piece of which took us quite a lot of time of toing and froing with our architects and with the trust to get it right. In architectural terms, when you bring in a new material, they don't like keeping an old design. And the issue that we had is that the Heritage Trust wanted us to retain two original windows, but they were not energy efficient. And then we had the Ministry of the Environment, which was asking us for a B rating. So we were in a bit of a conundrum. Eventually what we managed to settle is managed to convince the trust that we could bring modern materials but bring the look or retain the look of the original building. Our architects were adamant that we were going to use new materials, that the design of the window should change. So their image for this was two single panes, which would have destroyed the look of the building. We fought against that. We got advice from the Heritage Trust, and even though we had to convince the trust a little bit, we bought a couple of samples. We bought the contractor across from Spain, we made a sample, and then eventually what we did is we installed a pilot's window, which is the one that you see in front of you. I'm happy to report that both the Ministry and the Heritage Trust both approved the window, which we are ecstatic with. So now the building, even though it's now getting its B efficiency rating as mandated by the Ministry, it will also retain the old look of the building. So what you see here is one of the many lamps which we found within the workshops from the MOD times. Now unfortunately, obviously due to the amount of light that we need to generate on our vehicles, obviously it's for the workshops, we can't use them there. But what we're going to do is we're going to repurpose them, and again the trust was quite helpful with this, is we're going to actually refurbish them, send them away to get refurbished, and then we're going to utilize them in our dining hall, which will be part of phase 2. So we're going to give them another life, so they'll continue living within the building. Unfortunately, we can't save everything, and obviously when we took over the building, we found that a lot of infrastructure was not in a very good condition. There was a lot of service which we did with the drainage, with the wastewater, with electricity cables, and all of that has had to be taken out. So unfortunately, items such as these cast iron pipes, which are original to the building, will have to be taken down and replaced by modern infrastructure. It is one of the things that we couldn't salvage, but fortunately we're going to keep certain elements of it, and they will be shown in our interpretation center to show how they used to be in this building. Okay, so I'm standing in one of the 5 original staircases which connect obviously the ground to the first floor, and obviously the very, very beautiful, original to the building substructures And what you can see here is some of the coats of paints are still not finished, but some of the coats of paints which we are sort of applying to the staircase to bring it back. They've been stripped back to the bare bones. We sandblasted them, and then through a treatment we're bringing them back to life. Once they're finished, they should be the same color as the rest of the structure. Another element of this beautiful staircase is the hundreds of wooden blocks which compose of the actual tread. The idea of these wooden blocks in the late 1800s was the health and safety issue. It's a non-slip block for the workers to go up. Now obviously this is a nightmare to maintain, as you can see, but essentially what we're doing is replacing a lot of the damaged blocks. We'll have to sand the complete floor and then give it a very, very good finish to retain this beautiful feature. Okay, so we're now situated between the western and the middle warehouse on the first floor. And what you see behind me is the roof element. As you can see, we've restored it quite well. Apart from being protected against all the rust, we removed all the rust. We've actually painted it, and that's the color it's going to finish. A point to note is if you look at the sheeting on the right-hand side, it's an old sheeting from the 1960s, which the MOD sort of changed the roof then. It has no properties whatsoever as far as heating and elements go. So that's been replaced with a more modern, more up-to-date to give us the B efficiency rating, which was mandated of us. We've managed to retain obviously the industrial look, which was quite important to us, and because we brought the modern elements to a very old building, it was very, very important that our architects delivered sort of a compromise. So you'll see that a lot of the cable trays which are around give it that industrial look. We didn't want to destroy it all with modern materials, even though we had to have compromises. But I think we're talking and liaising quite a lot with the trust. I think we've managed to hit that quite well. But the beauty about it is that we've retained the original structure of the building, and as you can see, it's been painted into as close to the original color as we could find it. So you've seen the whole of the building. We've now arrived at the western elevation of the building. The doorway that you see behind me is the final workshop. This is where the vehicles will basically get the quality control check before being shipped out, posted anywhere in the world. On the western elevation there are certain elements, again very in keeping which you've heard throughout the rest description of the building. I think it is important to mention here that a project doesn't need to be this big or this magnitude. Any kind of project which has certain heritage value, it is important for contractors to liaise quite closely with the Heritage Trust, because they will advise you and they will accommodate you. But it's important, I think, on our side that we retain the historical value of buildings such like this, which is extremely important for Gibraltar's heritage, not only for our future, but for our children's future as well. And in that note, I'd like to thank Claire and the personnel within the Heritage Trust, without their invaluable help, we wouldn't have able to bring this building back to its original life.
I mean, one of the challenges, particularly of the site, has been, to an extent, we didn't know what we were going to encounter. There haven't been any big surprises, and I think it's gone well. I think, notwithstanding planning requirements and the legislative need to consult heritage, I think we've gone beyond that, and I think we've struck a very good working relationship on a day-to-day basis with both the Heritage Trust and the government archaeologists. They've helped us the same as we hope we've helped them in the response times when we've had a query or we found something or have a question. They've attended on site very promptly. I think they've enjoyed it, going down into the foundations and seeing the things we've seen. And I think they've been invaluable for us in recording the building and things that in a construction site, once we record what we do from an as-built point of view to find out where the things are, they've been invaluable in helping us record other aspects of the build. But although we've taken the care and respect of the heritage from a building point of view and a construction point of view, it has been a challenge, and I think one that we've risen to, and I think that hopefully the results will show that at the end.